This is MG, and welcome to another episode of the Reimagine You Lab podcast. And as you all well know, we've got someone in the lab today that is absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, today's guest leads with a quiet strength, a lived wisdom, and a deep commitment to people over position. Diana Fritz has transformed adversity into alignment, reminding us that resilience, authenticity, and clarity aren't just leadership tools, but they're a way of life. Diana, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. It's great to be here with you, MG, and I'm having a great day. It's a little chillier than normal where I'm at, but that's okay. Where I'm here.
Oh, I know it. I know it. Yeah, like this is not supposed to be the weather in Florida this time of year. That is for sure. Well, Diana, the way that I told you the way that we start off the show is we're going to go beyond the bio. So tell people who you are, where you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Awesome. Well, Diana Fritz, and I am a mom, a wife, servant leader, speaker, author, all kinds of things and opportunities that I've gotten to do over the time. I forgot to say where I am. I am in Ormond Beach, Florida. So I am originally from Pennsylvania, but right now I am living in Ormond Beach, Florida, so not too far from you. And to classify what I do, I would say that I strive to help people or teams that are stuck to figure out how they make a path forward and how they embrace their own resilience and continuing to move forward and show up for themselves and for the people around them. And how I do it varies. I would say it depends on if it's an individual or a team, but I am always looking and observing for where the pain is or where they're stuck and then helping them find a way forward. And the method varies based on what works best for the individual or the team.
Got you. Oh, I love that. So, okay, I want to start out just kind of thinking about, in this current season of your life, Diana, what's bringing you the most joy and grounding? Like we've started a new year, so I'm always interested in, what is that joy? What's happening for you right now?
It's a great fitting question. I actually, in one of the roles I am playing right now, we are going through the fruits of the spirit, and we just did joy last week. And
is that right?
This week is peace. So this is good. They go well together. I think it's been a life lesson to remember that joy is something we choose. It's not. It comes from within and it comes from our foundation, and we can all choose to find joy even in trials. It's easy to find joy in good times, right? It's figuring out how we still find joy when the challenges come through and hit, because happiness is temporary, right? I made it to work today, right? But joy is like that internal overflow that can only really come from a solid relationship with God and appreciation for what we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I always think it's making that choice, right? You get to choose, you choosing. So Diana, before leadership roles and credentials, and I want to talk about all of that today, but before that, who was Diana becoming and what actually shaped the way you now see people and purpose in your life?
Good thing if you look back through my LinkedIn profile, I've had a lot of different things that I've done, and being in the seat I am today is probably not what I would have imagined. I graduated college with the hope that I would be a college athletic director someday. Not even close to that, but I am doing things with college athletes. I get to speak with student athletes and around topics around resilience and teamwork. So I'm related, but I'm not where I thought I would be. And I think that's been an interesting part of my journey. I've had a lot of different roles, but it wasn't until I started my journey at DME, which was a marketing company, like in early 2000, that I really work to embrace the opportunities as a leader and work to develop the people around me, always to make sure I'm continually growing, but also giving the people around me the opportunity to have personal growth and professional growth, and to keep, pushing and giving them ways to see the potential of what they can become. So it has certainly evolved over time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I always think about, especially when you are learning people and learning their backstory, and you've got a great story, some things that, resilience, you talk about it, you help people to shape, embrace it, and things like that. But there were things in your life that challenged, where it really called on that resilience. Do you want to share some of your, personal story, and so that people kind of have a lens of, wow, she was resilient, and because I think a lot of times that's what helps people really be able to say for themselves, you know what, I can do it too.
Mhm.
I can overcome, or I'm facing a challenge now, and I feel like I can't, but hey, I heard Diana and her story, and it made a difference for me. So I would love if you don't mind you sharing.
Yeah, happy to. You know, I I often think about a song when I think about resilience. So you get knocked down and you get back up again.
Oh
And
yeah. That's a good one.
yeah, my early lessons on that, I feel like, were when I was playing basketball in high school. My coach was really good at reminding us, like, there's so much mental in sports, right? Bad things are going to happen. I'm going to turn over the ball. I'm going to get called for a foul, and I don't think it's right. But how I respond to that determines how well I'm going to do the rest of the game. And that applies to life as well. I graduated from high school early, like a year early. I was 16 because I wanted to play college basketball. And shortly after, the team was solidified, we were into practice, I tore my ACL, which was a season ending injury. That was what I thought was a big, knock my socks off moment in my life. But that was a test to my resilience, right? I was reminded I get to choose, right? Nobody can steal my freedom to choose how I'm going to respond to this. And I'm going to choose like positive. I thought that was a big deal then, but then 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer near my left eye. And so that was more of a real, like, knock your socks off moment. And at that time, I was had been divorced for about 6 months, so I was a single mom of two young boys, and getting this news of having a rare form of cancer and needing to have quite a few surgeries, and also an executive, and we were positioning our company for sale. So I had a lot of things to juggle in that season. And again, that reminder, right? I still get to choose how I respond. So I can look at this as, oh, cancer, poor me, or I can look at this and go, okay, I'm going to get to be around doctors, nurses, patients, people that otherwise I never would be around. How can I add value to them? There's a reason why I'm in these doors, and it's not just cancer.
Right.
And that journey has progressed. We were able to save my eye for 9 years by different surgeries. And then we ended up, the tumor started to grow behind my eye and was resting on my brain. So that led to a tough call from my doctor: Diana, we've been fighting for your eye. We need to shift to fight for your life. That
Yeah.
phone call would make all of us pause, as it did me. And so now I have this unique look about me where they had to go in through my skull. So I've got stitches all up through my head and down along my neck, and to remove the tumor resting on the brain, but also remove the eye and some different areas within my sinuses. So I have a unique look about me.
Yeah.
But I've also had so many um, great opportunities along this journey to remind myself that um, no matter the adversity, I still have the opportunity to shine and add value to other people.
Yeah. You know what? I love, hey, I've got a new look, but my purpose is probably still the same.
Yeah.
What I adding value to people, sharing what I know to help their lives become better. Yeah. Like it's a different credential, I say, that you have now, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think many times, we hear people up on a stage talking about, yeah, you can do it, right? And you can overcome it, but they haven't lived it. And so
Experienced anything.
it's hard to relate. And I have obviously lived something. You can look at me and know that I've lived something. So it's a matter of whether or not I was sharing this with some students last week. I can smile and be known as the lady with one eye that still has a smile on her face, or I can be grumpy and mean, and I don't want to be remembered that way as the one-eyed
Right.
lady that's grumpy and mean. So I get to choose, right?
Right. It is. Yeah, you do. You do. You know what I think too? I think those beliefs, right? That people have and hold and sometimes carry far too long, and a lot of them are self-limiting. What do you feel like in that when you were just sharing that, it made me think about, sometimes there's things that we just have to release, whether it's beliefs, expectations, identity, in order to really be able to step into the leader that you are today, because I think that's what makes you successful, and success looks different for everybody. But what was it that you had to release? But or were you just born this resilient girl, and you show up this way every day, or was there some things that you had to put down and get rid of too, to really be able to embrace and become this Diana?
I think there's certainly always things that I'm letting go, right, or putting down. It's natural for all of us to want to control the situation, right, and what's going
Mhm.
to happen. And I mean, I graduated from high school early because I wanted to play basketball sooner, right? Makes perfect sense, right? But I wanted to know what was next, right? So if I make a decision, I get to know that kind of. Um, but I think that's a battle we often face, right? I want to know what's going to happen, so I'm going to make a decision versus being calm and still in it and waiting for guidance or what the right next step is. And um, there's areas I do that well in, and there's areas I struggle. I think with a cancer diagnosis, particularly with a rare form of cancer,
Mhm.
um, it has been taught. I've learned a lot more around the importance of just being still, being patient, looking for guidance instead of just charging forward.
Mhm. That's good. That's really good. And I think that's people need that, right? Like, it's sometimes it's easy to make a decision, but then we have to live with the decision that's
Yeah.
made. So it's kind of, if we on the front end make the best decision, even though we don't always know what the outcomes are, you know, but taking that moment, hearing that still small voice, embracing, what's next with that guidance is a difference maker. I know you speak often about being uniquely imperfect yet
Mm.
uniquely qualified. So how has embracing imperfection strengthened your leadership? Rather than diminishing it.
Yeah, that's the title of my book, and the book cover, has an image of me without an eye, right? And
You
so
got a copy? Share it. Like, let people see it. Like, we
you
want people
you know
to
what?
jump in. You guys,
I don't have an image up here with me. I
that
I am a slacker today.
no worries.
I do have a little. This is a decal I give out. So this little picture of me with a starfish eye is on the front cover of the book. Um, but that's through that, like, lesson, I was thinking through, right? I have a unique look about me, but that gives me, if I'm willing to smile through it and look for
Yeah.
ways to serve, then I am uniquely qualified to help somebody that has to go through a similar procedure, going to go
Mhm.
through something difficult, where they're losing something that's a part of their body, right?
Significant. Yeah.
That's significant. And I am uniquely qualified to support and connect to them. But I think along the routes of, like, my leadership style, I think how I would correlate it there is many times leaders aren't willing to be transparent and real and authentic when
Mhm.
they mess up. or when they make a mistake. And so that's always been important to me, is to just be real and authentic. I mess up. I mess up as a mom. I mess up as a wife. I mess up as a leader. And if I'm willing to share my imperfection, right? I did this wrong, and this is what I'm going to do next time. It builds trust and respect with the people around me, no matter who the people are, right? It could be my child, could be my spouse, right? But that when we're willing to acknowledge we're not perfect and what we can do differently, whether it's an action or something physical, it helps us to connect with the people around us and build trust.
Yeah, no, I like that. So Diana, thinking of the book, I would love for you to share, like when you're talking to people, give them the input or the synopsis, so that folks can. I want you guys to connect with Diana. We're going to put all of her link and information is in the bio, so I want you guys to connect with her. But Diana, kind of share what made you write the book in the first place, and how you use it, or how you're sharing the message, and what your goal is with
it. So 12 years ago, when I first started my cancer journey, I had written in my journal, someday I want to write a book. And I had let it kind of sit there for 12 years. However, maybe I was preparing, because I'm a journaler. So I had lots of preparation. And then as I was needing to have the eye removed, which led to 7 weeks of radiation and a lot of time without working, I came back to, okay, Diana, you wanted to write a book. And multiple people would come up to me after I would speak and say, Diana, if you wrote a book, it would be a lot easier for me to pass this on and help somebody else. And so I made the commitment, okay, I'm going to write a book. And I, leveraged all the journals of over the years. And my goal with the book was not just to share a story about me, but was to share the lessons along
it.
my cancer journey. And so each chapter closes with a reflection and then an application, so that whether you've had cancer, somebody that's had cancer, or maybe your cancer is a different type of adversity, like it's anger or it's a different loss, um, you can submit your type of cancer or adversity and respond to the questions. And so then ideally anyone reading it can connect, reflect, and have some personal growth from the story and the lessons.
So good. The lessons, you know what? The lessons learned is a game changer. Like, if you don't have to, um, go it alone, so to speak, right? Like, there's resources. So you guys make sure that you connect with Diana. Diana, I'm thinking about, I think, you're an expert in being uniquely imperfect, right? And which is, makes you uniquely qualified. And so, communication is central to a lot of the work you do. What do most leaders misunderstand about accountability and connection with their teams? When you're working with these groups and teams and things, what are some of the um, consistent underlying things around accountability and the connection that you see in your work?
Well, I always smile when I'm asked a question similar to that. So we all have blind spots. I have this very literal one that everybody gets to look at, but we all have hidden ones, and that is often common gaps within leaders and teams, is they don't recognize their own blind spots, and thus they end up charging forward and thinking everything's okay, and it's not okay, right? We're ignoring things. We have a blind spot. We don't have somebody, our team around us isn't comfortable enough to call us out or to challenge us, and instead we just keep throwing things under the carpet, right? Eventually we're going to trip over the carpet,
Yeah,
and that
kick
doesn't
up in
always
the
work.
rug.
Yeah, that doesn't always work so well when that happens. And I think with teams, it's just really important that there's a comfort level where they can communicate and talk about what's not working and what is working, and just work on having that open dialogue. And sometimes it's a tough conversation, right? It's conflict, but that's okay. As long as a team walks out the door as one team, it's okay to have healthy conflict in the room. And sometimes I help to spark that. And I think the piece on accountability is interesting, because I think it's a word that's often misused, in terms of, I'm going to hold you accountable, right? And you can picture somebody yelling at you, right? But the reality is, we don't do well as a business or as a team if we don't do what we say we're going to do. We let our customers down, we let our employees down, and if we don't have a clear agreement up front in terms of what we're accountable for, and then we hold to it, people end up in the same meetings every week talking about the same things and just feel like they're never making any progress forward. And that all ties to accountability. So one, interesting way for me is, I'll go in and just say, well, can I just join your executive team meeting or your leadership meeting? Can I just sit and observe for a few weeks? And then when I see the same thing on the topic every week, and I go, okay, let me just give you some ideas, right? We keep talking about the same thing. Nobody owns it. So who's going to own it? By when are they going to have an update? And let's start making a shift to be more accountable with our organization or our team.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm probably a techie nerd type, but I like our racy charge. Like, who's responsible to be accountable for this? Who's going to communicate it? I think those things are important. When you think about the teams and stuff that you work with, and what is it in those scenarios? Is it that people feel like they can't talk to? So what, like, give us an example of, hey, this was a situation, I saw those recurring, maybe the same topic on the agenda 5 times in a row, and you sparked some of the conflict, the good conflict that is healthy. And what was the outcome? Can you share a good example with us? Because sometimes I think there are things that are happening for people, are happening with people, and they don't know how to change it up or cause something different to occur. So I would love for you to kind of expound a little bit.
Yes, no, I think one of the things that I've watched is, you have a team talking about how we want to, let's say, do better in terms of how we communicate to our customers. And so in the conversation, there's lots of, we should do this, and we should do this, and we should do that, right? And nobody's really taking notes, and nobody's assigning out who's going to do what by when. And so then the shift becomes, okay, these are great ideas. Which ones do we want to move forward on? And they pick, these 3. Okay, great. Who's going to own this one? Okay, great. Joe, you're going to own this one. You're going to have an update on the next meeting. Susie, you're going to own this one. We're going to have an update at the next meeting. And then you shift your agenda to the next meeting. And the agenda is, we start with, what are our action items from last week? Let's have updates. And some of it is a combination of accountability tied in with, like, how we're running a meeting, right? There's a great book, Death by a Meeting, because, and it's really the cadence, right? We just keep having the same meeting, and there's no, like, intent or action from it, and we lead to a lot of frustrated people that maybe aren't even paying attention in the meeting. So
right, a lot of multitasking happens in some of those meetings, for sure. Oh, I know. When I think about doing what we do in the work that we do, the circles and stuff that we kind of live in, how do you stay anchored in your values when leadership, I hear from women often, that leadership can kind of feel lonely, and misunderstood. Do you experience any of that? And if so, how have you overcome
it? I think, I guess I'd say a few things. One, I work to stay very grounded in my foundation. So I spend time every morning around 5 a.m. just reflecting, quiet time, Bible, prayer, meditation. What's my day? Who do I need to add value to? So that's an important aspect of just making sure I'm in tune, personally. I think if I'm feeling lonely as a leader, then that means I'm not engaging enough with the people that I'm leading. And so
Mm-hmm,
if
mm-hmm.
I'm lonely, that's mine to fix, right? And I need to go walk slowly through the hallways or go offer to help somebody or go try to connect with somebody on the team because there's no reason to be lonely, right? There's people that need you and that need a rapport built and you need to understand and connect with. And so that's always my reminder. If I feel lonely, then that means I need to go visiting with the people.
Yeah. You know what? That's so good and counterintuitive because people, you wouldn't think, oh, I need to engage more. Like if I'm lonely, I need to engage more. That is exceptional. Um, so important. I love that you are a woman of faith and that faith is built into everything that you do. I, like you, have a morning routine that I spend with the Lord first. Like if I give him that time in the day, he's definitely going to maximize my time later in the day. And it just, it kind of grounds me and gets me ready for each day. When you think about being faith based, because a lot of times people are uncomfortable or unsure. I'll say
Mm-hmm.
unsure
Yeah.
about expressing or sharing their faith in things that they do. How have you, as a business leader, embraced and kind of show your faith and share that with clients and those who work with you? Because I think it's so important. And I have listeners that sometimes get mixed up about how should I, shouldn't I, and that kind of thing. Have you run into any of that?
I think my approach has been I need to earn the right by how I live and how I act for somebody to ask me what the source is of my calmness or my peace or
Yes.
my strength. And if I'm trying to tell it when I'm not living it, then I haven't earned the right. And so that's really what I strive to do, is just to earn the right by how I live, by how I act, and by how I lead, to have the conversation. And um, share a story from a few months ago. I guess time flies, but I was speaking with a medical society, and I was sharing my journey and my story as a cancer patient. And at the end, one of the doctors came up to me and said, "Diana, you have to have a strong foundation, because I know a lot of patients that would probably be hiding and not willing to talk, or they wouldn't even be alive anymore. And so you have to have a strong foundation in order to be standing here today." And so in that scenario, right, I earned the right, to get to talk
Yeah.
about my foundation, because he noticed that I was different. And
Yeah.
so,
No, I love that. I love that. What does influence look like when exercised without a title? Totally, totally different subject, but it just made me think about, like, because we want to label a lot of things and a lot of people and things like that. But what do you think that influence looks like when exercised without titles? Just thinking about the leaders that listen and, are talk to me about, Michelle, I just don't know. Like there's always some things like you can lead. You don't have to be the CEO of the organization to lead. I'm sure in some of the teams that you've worked with that you're able to identify some leaders in some of those meetings that aren't necessarily the manager, the uh, director, and so forth. But so what do you think influence looks like
no,
without a
I think
title?
it's often like misunderstood, right? Where people think I need to have a title in order for people to follow me, but that's often um, sometimes the title is what makes people not want to follow you. The but it's more, who you are, right? Are you somebody that's worthy of following? Do you build trust with people? Are you willing to listen to them and help them with ideas and how they move forward? And often in like a meeting or environment, it's the person that raises their hand to help, right? When you have something that nobody wants to own and somebody says, "Well, I'll do that," right? Or, "How can I help you? I'll help move this forward." They are building their influence and their trust with the people around them. It doesn't matter what their title is, right? If they are willing to raise their hand and help and support an initiative or help somebody that's really stuck, right? That is seizing an opportunity to lead. And it's leading by serving, which is a bit biased, but I think that's one of the greatest ways to build your leadership presence is by just serving.
Serving. No, I like that. I really do. When you think about sustainable leadership, and the characteristics, what do you think that sustainable leadership requires that kind of hustle culture kind of overlooks? Is there anything you've seen in that?
For sustainable leadership, meaning ongoing perception as a leader.
Yes. Mhm.
I think when I look back through one of probably the most impactful leaders that I've reported to and followed over like a 15-year career, I think what was really important as we navigated through good times and tough times was that there was always consistent communication.
Yeah.
There was always, he always had people around him balancing his blind spots. So I was often the one, because I was the one connected to the people with the passion around the people, that we
Yeah.
would work together on, okay, Diana, what do we need to communicate? What are we missing? Like, what's the pulse of the people? And just always being conscious of that, because the tendency at times when things aren't going well is to not communicate. And when we don't communicate, there's a gap, and negativity is what's going to fill the gap. Positive isn't likely going to fill the gap. So just that consciousness of continually communicating, building trust and a consistency with your team, and then providing space for them to ask questions. One of the things that became a practice during that time frame was the president and I would do lunch with groups of people across the organization, like in groups of 10, like every other week. And we just had this cadence of, we're going to talk your name, who you are, something crazy about you, right, that nobody knows. And then once we do all that, we want to open a forum. Like, if you have a complaint, as long as you bring a solution, like, let's talk about it. And it would just provide great openness and ideas, and also help us to get a view of what it's like to be in their world. But the key piece of it was solution oriented, not complaint oriented. And that really helped to make just the practice of what we did and the culture of our leadership and organization be sustainable through the good times and the bad times.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. I love that. And Diane, I swear it seems like the time, like where has the time gone? Like it goes so quickly. I think about, I always want to leave our listening audience with something that they can take with them. So what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for change makers?
For change makers?
Change makers.
Well, first I would just state to not give up, right? You're going to always hit resistance when you are promoting change. And so don't give up. Take time to listen and gain perspective of what it's like to be in the shoes of those that are going to be affected by the change. Because many times as a leader, you've been working on this change for months, and we forget that it's new to the people that we're going to ask to change. And so where we've gotten accustomed to it, we have to remember what it felt like to us 3 months ago. So remember to put yourselves in their shoes, and then just spend time like working to listen to people and help them get from the complaint to what's in it for them.
Yeah. I love it. Diana Fritz, you are absolutely amazing. You guys, you can find Diana and go to her website. It's uiuq.com. And we've got the link down in the description, so you'll be able to find her. She's on LinkedIn, she's on Facebook. We want you to connect. Diana, thank you so much for coming to the show today. I appreciate you. Look, we have been trying to do this
Yeah.
for a few weeks now, so I am so glad that we got it in this morning. Oh, it has been great. I think you share so much value, so much that people can do. Sharing your personal story. You guys get the book, Uniquely Imperfect. Diana, tell me the rest. Give it.
Uniquely qualified.
Uniquely perfect, uniquely qualified. You guys, Diana, thanks again for coming in. And remember, those of you who have listened in, if you enjoy something from the show, don't just run past it. Share it with someone else. Give it to them so that they can too, take some of what Diana has shared with us today, pause, reflect, and listen. Your life is speaking, and often the bravest thing that you can do really is just trust that what we've walked through, we've been prepared for is preparing us for what's next. So until next time, lead with presence, not performance. And remember, quiet strength still changes everything. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you.